There we go. So welcome everyone to this webinar sharing learning from the Starting Well Fund. I'm Celeste, I'm the Maternity Consortium Coordinator and Engagement Lead at the Sam's and Tommy's Policy Unit. I would love to know where everyone on the call is from, so please do introduce yourselves in the chat if you haven't already. I was looking at the sign-ups, we've got a range of people across different teams, across different sectors, so it would be really great to see who's here today, and really happy to have you all with us to hear from the amazing Starting Well projects. So just to give a bit of background, so the Maternity Consortium is part of the VCSE Health and Wellbeing Alliance, which is a partnership between the voluntary sector, the Department of Health and Social Care and NHS England. The Alliance includes a number of partnerships and consortiums focused on a range of different health and social care issues, and Tommy's and Zan's co-lead the Maternity Consortium, which focuses on preconception up to the first year of a child's life. And the Maternity Consortium is made up of National Maternity Voices, the Pregnancy and Baby Charities Network, 5 Times More, the Muslim Women's Network, and LGBT Mummies. And as part of the Health and Wellbeing Alliance, we deliver projects which are focused on reducing health inequalities, facilitating partnership working between the voluntary and statutory sectors, and bringing service user voice to national policy development and delivery as well. And one of the projects that we've been working on is supporting the Starting Well Fund to share learning. So for those of you who don't know, there's kind of like another arm of the Health and Wellbeing funding, which is focused on funding projects on the ground around specific themes. So the Health and Wellbeing Fund started in 2017 with that overarching aim again on reducing health inequalities. And each year there are different themes, and a couple of years ago, the theme was Starting Well. So 19 projects were funded to reduce health disparities among new mothers and babies. And we've been supporting the projects to share learning and amplify.
You've just gone mute, Celeste.
Thank you. I don't know how that happened. So we've been supporting the Starting Well projects to share learning, and we've been doing that through these webinars. And we have also developed a map of where the projects are based, so I will send around the links to all the webinar recordings and this map if you want to have a look. But essentially we've just been supporting connections being made across the system with the projects. So if anyone wants to get in touch with any of the projects, even if they aren't working in your local area but you're interested in the work that they're doing, we can definitely facilitate that. And then we do encourage you to take a look at the webinar recordings where some of the other projects have been sharing some of the insights from the work that they've been doing. So the agenda for today's webinar, hopefully you would have seen it on Eventbrite in more detail, but we've got Happy Baby Community, NCT and Leicester Mamas giving us presentations, and there will be kind of breaks for Q&A in between those presentations. So do remember to post your questions for our lovely speakers in the chat, and we will pose those questions to them in the Q&A breaks. Just a bit of housekeeping. The recording will be shared after the event, and so will the slides. And if during the call, if you're not presenting, if you could just stay on mute, that would be really helpful. Thank you very much. So I will stop sharing my screen. And I'm very pleased to be handing over to Jill and Yolanda for their presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay, right, so thank you. Hello everybody. We're presenting, Yolanda and I today are presenting a little bit about Happy Baby Community and the perinatal program. Happy Baby Community is a charity working across London for mothers who are seeking protection and sanctuary in the UK whilst they are pregnant and or with very, very small children. And I lead the perinatal program, and Yolanda manages it with me within the larger Happy Baby Community. So before our case study of one mother's sort of journey and experience with Happy Baby Community, we thought we would just give you a picture of what Happy Baby Community mothers, who they are, and a little bit of what Happy Baby Community does as we go along. So this represents 1 month of referrals from December. Every month we take approximately 30 to 50 referrals, and about 2/3 of those mothers will then be referred into the perinatal program because they're pregnant at the time that they're being referred into Happy Baby Community. So as you can see on the left, mothers from Happy Baby Community come from all over the world, so many different countries. This only represents 1 month, and there are very many more countries that people come from as well. And there are different, there are more women from different countries at different times, sort of waves from different places, which are not necessarily predictable according to the news. If you look on the right, you'll see, of these particular 35 mothers who were referred in December, the languages, all the different languages they speak are listed on the right. So we're constantly working with, 20, 30, 40 languages at a time. And one of the most important elements of our care is to make sure that we're talking to every mother in her own language. So we are constantly working with a group of skilled community members and professional interpreters in order to be able to speak to every woman as comfortably and fully as we can. Happy Baby Community mothers tend to be younger, so the majority of mothers are in their late teens and early 20s, although we do have mothers up into their mid to late 40s as well. 75% of Happy Baby Community mothers are having their first baby, and 75% are on their own here in the UK. And that doesn't necessarily cross over, that 75%. Many of them will, of course. But, and of course, I'm sure that you know this, but mothers who are here on their own in the UK are entirely without family support, cultural network, just that fabric around us each when we're having our babies that makes us feel held and gives us knowledge and wisdom and, and nurtures us and soothes us. And they are entirely on their own, and not only dealing with parenting as if that weren't enough, but then of course also dealing with the asylum system, dealing with the stresses and strains of everyday life, and dealing with living with and trying to heal from whatever trauma they've experienced. Up to 75% of HBC mothers have experienced modern slavery and trafficking and or sexual violence within domestic or familial, domestic situations, excuse me. And what we do know, because we never ask these questions, so we don't ask people what their story has been. We know that people have made dangerous and terrifying journeys. We know that people have experienced so much trauma, and we know that they're oftentimes from volatile countries and might have experienced quite horrific things there. We don't ask those questions because the underlying tenet of our care is trauma informed, and we don't, we avoid as much as we possibly can re-triggering anybody or making them feel unsafe in any way. Our priority is to make people feel safe physically and emotionally when they're working with us. So we don't ask those questions. What we do know is that every mother who comes through our door has experienced significant trauma. And so we're caring for her in the most sensitive and appropriate way without needing to ask a lot of questions. Yes, okay, so Yolanda is going to just read us a case story of a mother named Elvana and what her experience was within Happy Baby Community generally and within the perinatal program. Over to you.
Thank you, Jill. Hi, everyone. I will read Elvana's story. When I arrived to the Happy Baby Community for the first time, I was in a hopeless situation because I had asked for help in many occasions. I had sent endless emails and no one answered me. So I thought that the same thought would happen to me here. But quite the opposite happened. I had hope in everything we did, and I started to be convinced that they really are the people I needed so much in not easy situation in which I was. I was 8 months pregnant. I had absolutely nothing about the baby. I had no information about the birth. At the meeting in Dalston Garden, I felt very good because it was a very warm environment, even though it was the first time I participated on this group. I couldn't wait for Monday when I could join the children and mothers for Happy Baby community staff. Every week I met wonderful people. One of them was Julie, who helped me exceptionally much with pregnancy information from breastfeeding, birth, or even postpartum. Also, every week I was in physical contact on the phone with different members of the group, which easy every difficult and gave me the assurance that everything could go very well. On this occasion, I also met wonderful mothers who brought me clothes for my daughter, whom I am raising with the gift they gave. I also met Pram Depot, who brought me the first box for my daughter with everything I needed. The Happy Baby community network is big, that it is there to me, because even today, when my daughter is 2 months old, they don't stop helping. They gave me the opportunity to attend online courses, but also online meetings with different doctors to understand about different illness or problems. Another great help from me was Debbie, who contacted me every day about any problem I had with migrant health and their support. Thank you from the bottom of my heart to all Albanian girls I met there who did their best to get the right support in translation or in other circumstances. I will not leave without mentioning the doula, Sarah. She is blessing in my life, and I thank God, but also the Happy Baby community who sent her to the hospital. 3 days before my daughter was transferred to another city, 45 minutes away from London, and I experienced it really badly. Sorry, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's interference. I thought I would be alone, but Happy Baby community sent Sarah, who stayed with me from the first moment of labor until my little girl was born. She was my biggest support in the most beautiful and difficult moment of my life. I never thought that someone would do what Sarah did for me. She was without sleep, without food. She gave me a massage. She motivated me all the time. You are doing very good. You are a wonderful mom. 26 hours with me in labor, and for 3 weeks after I gave birth, she called me twice a week about the problems I may encounter or even about the pleasure I was experiencing. Thank you very much, Happy Baby community, for making the birth of my daughter so easy and beautiful. I'll speak to my daughter with more love for the environment and the people who helped her come into life and be a happy baby. Thank you.
Oh, Jill, you're now on mute.
Jill.
Can you still see the screen?
Yeah, we can see the screen.
Okay. Sorry about that. So, right. So, Yolanda took Elvana's story down and translated it into English for us. And so thank you very much for reading it, Yolanda. So what Elvana was describing was really so many parts of Happy Baby community and everything that we do. And the perinatal program is huge because virtually every mother who comes into Happy Baby at some point ends up in the perinatal program. Either she arrives when she's pregnant or at some point during her time with us, she falls pregnant. But there's so much more as well. So Elvana described, so let me just back up for 1 minute. So what we have done, because we want everybody, our vision really is that people feel connected and valued and that they have the opportunity, like everybody else, to integrate and thrive in the UK. And in order to do this, we've created community. We've created 5, well, the number of groups has grown. 5 in-person weekly groups that happen in different places across London so that women can ideally locate the group that's a little bit closer to them and meet other people who live a little closer to them as well. We also have 2 online days on Zoom, and we're able to oftentimes offer data for people if they're not able to join otherwise. What we have created, what our intention is to create this big network of support in many different areas. Community is at the heart of it. Community is the key word, because when people come together in community, they get stronger and they feel that they have a place that they belong, and their anxiety drops and their sense of, connection and all the good things that come, healing and wellness are enhanced. So community is the center of all of it, and people really do benefit, as Elvana described, from meeting each other, both people from their own, who speak their own language, but also people who speak other languages, and just being in the same place at the same time with their children playing, being, offered tea and food and lunch, and then all the activities that are going on around them. We have welfare, we have English classes, we have singing lessons, we have baby and child play, we have health information sessions, we have an education and professional development program for women who are a little further along in their process and who are looking to take those next steps in their own lives toward getting themselves into education or back into a career that they either worked in before or want to get into. We also have a leadership program within Happy Baby Community where mothers who've been in the community can come through and learn to take on important roles in the community and really run it themselves, because mothers are the ones who know what they need and want most of all. There's lots of information and education that happens on all these different levels. And then we have the perinatal program, which is in the middle of it. And I should say, as I said before, that all of this is done with interpretation for people in different languages. So, Elvana described her conversations with interpreting. Yolanda calls every single pregnant mother and has a conversation with them, either in English or Albanian, the languages she speaks, or in, using interpreters in the other languages the mother speaks. So we get everybody's individual needs in a private conversation where they can really, feel that they're being listened to and attended to. She came to the groups, she met people at the groups, she made friends at the groups, she did activities and informational things at the groups, including antenatal sessions. So we run antenatal sessions both at the groups and then individually with people on the phone. She also had a virtual perinatal caller. She said that somebody called her every week. So we have a network of people that we train, mothers from the community, we train to call other mothers and be a companion, a perinatal during the months before and after birth, to really just help them through that transition. She benefited from our welfare team who helped her with accommodation, and then particularly the fact that she got moved so late in pregnancy. She said she had to really settle in every way in a very short time before she had her baby. We were able to provide lots of essential items for birth, and we partner sometimes with other charities in order to do that. And she had a doula, so she had the continuous one-to-one presence of Sarah, who was able to be with her during birth and then to stay connected with her. Well, it started in pregnancy, and then to stay connected with her through the period of time after she had her baby, and just give that really, close-up kind of connection and care to talk about what it's like to be a new mother and how she was feeling and how her baby is. So this is our perinatal, just a little bit of a picture of the perinatal support and education, which I will describe to you just very, very briefly. We have a brilliant team of about 50 doulas, breastfeeding counselors, antenatal teachers, and we give everybody a lot of information sessions, reflection sessions, and individual supervision. For the mothers, everything is personalized. We talk to them about what they want, and we create a program around each individual mother where she fits into the things that work for her, whether that's group learning, whether it's individual learning, whether it's having a doula, whether it's not having a doula, but just having somebody who calls her and helps her, creating her birth preferences. We try to offer as much information and preparation as we can so that there's a sense of equity, because of course mothers in this community are not fitting into NCT classes, unfortunately, hospital parentcraft classes, you know, their lives are very chaotic. The languages they speak, they have no money. So, you know, we're trying to offer them something that makes their experience equitable and also tries to minimize some of the disadvantage that they're facing as asylum seekers in this country, particularly related to their maternity care and how they fit into the health system. And you know, we do a lot of preparation for infant feeding and then feeding support afterwards. And this can also be particularly intricate if people have experienced, when people have experienced trauma before and sexual trauma before. And so we have some very specialized infant feeding support counselors. And then all of the support that people can get from peers and from perinatal callers. We do a lot of advocacy for mothers according to their wishes. And all of this is based on our foundation of trauma-informed care, culturally sensitive care, and ensuring that people feel that their dignity is upheld. And this was what one mother said to us, which has really just stayed in my heart for these years that we've been working. I will say that please, please be kind to others. All of us have had pressure, all of us. Just at the end, you are dealing with a human being. And the maternity, it's not any case. You feel yourself as between the earth and the sky. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Jill and Yolanda, for that really powerful presentation and the stories in particular that you shared. There are no questions in the chat currently. Does anyone want to kind of raise their hand and come off mute, or does anyone want to post anything in the chat for Jill and Yolanda? Samina?
Is the service only available in London?
It is available in London. We're just expanding.
Only in London.
Only in London and now
Oh.
Crawley, and possibly in other places in the future, but not yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a question from Kim about how you are funded.
How we're funded. Right. Well, so for the past 2 years, we've been, well, Happy Baby Community is funded in all sorts of different ways with different grants, depending on what program, you know, different organizations want to fund. But our perinatal program has been funded for the last 2 years by Starting Well. And before that, we were funded by NHS England to run a pilot program for about a year about offering birth support for asylum-seeking mothers.
Thank you, Jill. Any other questions? I mean, there's lots of nice comments in the chat as well about the amazing work you're doing. There's a question from Cassandra. How do women find you? Is it through referral?
Right. Yes. So women come to us in all sorts of different ways. Women can self-refer, and they often do because they live in initial accommodation, whether it's hotels or hostels or NAS accommodation with other mothers who've had our support. So many, many women self-refer, and that's fine. We also get referrals from midwives, from perinatal mental health nurses, from GPs, from other charity organizations, from, all over the NHS, from migrant help. You name it, we get referrals from them. We try not to turn anybody away, and we never really know how many women are going to, show up every month. But
amazing, thank you, Jill. There's another question from Pamela. Does a mum need to be in a particular part of London to be referred?
No, within the M25, anywhere is fine. And now, as I say, we're in a couple of months, we're going into Crawley. So if she's receiving support from services in Crawley, she can ask to be referred to us.
Amazing, thank you. Let's see. Samina has asked, can we come to you for any information and guidance when dealing with migrant expectant parents? We are in Sandwell.
Absolutely, with pleasure. We love talking to other people doing similar things.
Amazing. Yeah, and just to say, this is part of the reason we're holding these webinars, so different organisations can make connections. So please feel free to do that in the chat as well. We've got a question. Is there a referral criteria, Jill, for the programme?
So the criteria are women who are seeking asylum, although we also accept many women who have no recourse to public funds and are either, maybe their asylum has been declined and they're in that in-between stage, or they haven't yet applied for asylum. So we're able to consider those applications as well, or those referrals, sorry. Right, so women who are seeking asylum and who are pregnant or have children up until the age of 3 and who live within London.
Great, thank you very much. Do the doulas support them for 3 weeks post-birth and then pass them on to the community team?
Yes, so doula support begins in the last trimester of pregnancy through birth, and then the individual doula will call for 3 weeks. We do adjust that, you know, depending on individuals. If somebody really needs more of that continuous care from that doula, then we absolutely would adjust that. But normally at the end of 3 weeks, we would offer her a perinatal peer support caller and also try to encourage her to come back into the community groups and meet us online. And then also Yolanda calls everybody a few weeks later as well, just to see how they're doing and if there's something that we're missing. So.
Brilliant, thank you. There's another question. How many women are registered with Happy Baby Community?
At the minute, there are probably about 1,400 women and about 2,000 of their children registered with HBC.
Amazing.
And the perinatal program probably sees, the perinatal program probably works with about 350 a year, and maybe about 180 to 200 would choose a doula.
Brilliant. That sounds amazing. And then I think just a couple more questions. So do you have any resources that others can use in their work?
So we haven't done that yet. We're sort of just trying to keep up with the resources that we need. But, you know, if you're interested, get in touch and, you know, definitely we can talk about it.
That's very kind of you to offer, Jill. Let's see. Where do you signpost / refer women who do not meet your referral criteria?
So if they're outside of London, then Yolanda does research to try to find other organizations that do similar work. If they are within London but they don't meet our criteria, then we might refer them to other organizations like Magpie Project, Birth Companions, Doulas Without Borders, Neighborhood Doulas, anybody else we know. I mean, that's for perinatal work. For other just general Happy Baby Community type support, there's probably a whole host of other organizations that we refer to, but I don't know them all because I'm not sort of in that branch.
Of course, thank you. And I think perhaps the final question, someone's posted, we have a number of hotels and hostels in Lewisham where we have health visitors and school nurses doing some outreach work with asylum seeking families. Do you have capacity for outreach?
So that's really interesting because we're just building that up right now and trying to get some new volunteers and trying to build a team to do more outreach. But please get in touch. We have a few mothers at Lewisham right now, in fact.
Amazing. Great. Well, thank you so much, Jill, for taking all those questions. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for posting your questions and your nice comments for Jill and Yolanda in the chat. And thanks again for your amazing presentation. Really appreciate it. I'm now going to hand over to Belinda and Pamela from NCT.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll just share slides. Are you able to see that?
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, great. Good afternoon. So I'll be sharing along with my colleague, Pamela Mensah. So I'm the perinatal program manager and my name's Belinda Googie. And we'll be sharing about our perinatal program called Newham Nurture, which is in East London. We're currently funded by Department of Health Starting Well funding. So we're a community partnership with NCT, so National Childbirth Trust, and local grassroots organisations, Alternatives Trust, the Magpie Project, and our project evaluators that have been with us throughout the whole period, which is Compost London. The program supports women through pregnancy and up to 2 years after birth from low income, migrant and marginalised backgrounds experiencing financial hardship and disadvantage. So we are a targeted service. All the women that we support or families we support are either seeking asylum, they may have no recourse to public funds, or have refugee status with low income. So we're going to hear now some of the voices of women within our service sharing just snippets of their lived experience. But please be aware that the content may be quite difficult to hear.
From 2005, that was the first time I experienced homelessness. I was crying at Canada Water, going down the escalator. I fell over with my suitcase. I will never forget that experience.
10 people, all of them cooking, and only one toilet. This is that terrible experience I'm sharing. Sometimes I cannot go to space to toilet. I need to go toilet when they're coming. After 4 days, 3 days, I have to take shower because no space. Sometimes I take shower 3 o'clock at night. I'm telling you truth. I'm telling you my experience of life experience.
It's too small for me and the children because we have just 2 beds, so we have to share the bed, and he's a grown-up boy, a boy of 30-year-old, so we sleep together there.
There's no kitchen, there's nothing, just one room with toilets and one bed.
They called me in the home office. The woman was look at me like this, and she was, "Are you so? What do you mean, are you solicitor?" I said, "I have no one, ma'am. I am the fighter. I am fighting with everything. I'm fighting for my life, for my baby, for my husband. I'm no one." Then she asked me a question, and suddenly, from that interview pressure, my water broke. My water broke at the instant me from that in the hospital. My water broke instant front of her. I was waiting. And then, more interesting, they have lost my file number. Again, I called them. And they said, from this name, I don't have any file. What do you mean from this name, you don't have any file? That is my number. Then the man give me again new reference number after 4 years. Keep waiting.
I used to just wake up from 12 midnight up until 2 o'clock, where my period of crying every day. I used to just sit and cry because the child would be awake at that hour.
They will chop me. In Bangladesh, India, the people murdered in the road, instant front of the people. They chop like this. They will kill me. I know I will not be alive. If I can go in Bangladesh, ma'am, I will not be alive even 1 hour.
Because if you're pregnant, you don't have anybody to talk to. You just feel like killing yourself. I don't know how to say it. When I was pregnant, it was very, very crazy for me because I didn't have any support.
My brother-in-law, sometimes he tried to sleep with me. Try to be touched with me without my permission. I was so scared. I couldn't sleep. The light on. I was sit down on the room. Sad. He's still so pissed, man. As a woman, I try to face myself from the rap. Because I live with my sister and he doesn't tolerate me. He doesn't accept me. Why am I leaving them? I didn't tell them anything. Leave me. He didn't allow me to leave me because I'm a girl. I'm not allowed to go outside. They hold my hand all the time, 5 years. She didn't allow me to go outside anywhere. I don't know how to pass the road. I don't know the green signal or red signal. Or did I live in England 5 years? In England, I'm in 5 years and I don't know nothing. England policy, England thing. After 5 years, when I came to the road, I feel like I just get off from the yacht. God, why? Why is me?
You come across people giving birth in hotels. Why? Are those children meant to be learning to walk, take their first steps, crawl on the hotel carpet? So many families know, yes, there's children's services, but they don't believe in them. because some of them don't really understand what it means to help or support families. Some of them come as bullies to these families. You can imagine when there is a language barrier, when a woman does not understand half of the things that has been said to her, and she's not in a position to make choices. A lady like that will see the social services as a threat to her and her family life. She will resist with everything in her.
When I give birth with cesarean section in hospital, they just have to put me in one room, nobody to take care of me, nothing. And I was bleeding through my vein, my blood was gushing out because I was weak because they gave me a epidural at my back. I was weak, I can't raise up my leg, I can't do anything, and I've not eaten anything like 2 days because they first do induction for me, so my baby is not coming, so they have to give me emergency operation. So they just leave me there, nothing, nobody to attend to. And I called the nurse again. She was like, "Oh, don't stress me." Stop. I was like, "Oh."
My child goes somewhere, and when she's offered food, she will always ask them, "Can I take some for later? Can I take some home for later?" How am I supposed to untrain that? How am I supposed to watch my child pick up bad habits because she stayed hungry? How am I supposed to do that for her?
Sometimes I'm so hungry, I have no food. I was telling him, "Give me food, I'm pregnant, I need a food." We are just survive because we cannot die. We cannot die, man.
From 2000.
I'm aware that that was really difficult listening, but I do want to acknowledge that the enormous step of trust that these women have shared with us on this voice reel to share their experiences, just so we can actually experience them just for a few minutes in their shoes. So co-production is at the heart of all we do. We really value women's lived experience, and we share it very often, as you can hear. So the heart of our co-production is our steering group. We recruited at conception of the project from each of our services. So we have 11 women who have lived experience of the hardships and challenges and barriers that migrant and marginalised women face and that they need to overcome when accessing maternity services. So the members so far have given over 240 hours of their time through the project so far. So this is through attending focus groups, through assisting with the interviewing of staff and all of our volunteer roles, including our peer supporters, helping with informal interpretation and translation work, and also attending sessions and workshops to feedback their thoughts. So steering group members are encouraged to share experiences and thoughts from their own communities and also of other women that they're connected to, which really widens the numbers of voices that we're able to hear. So we also run quarterly focus groups with our mums that are accessing our service, so we get feedback on their experiences and any suggestions that they have for change within the program. And this is available anonymously and also in their own language. So one of our steering group members said about their experiences, this is a quote from them, "It's like conception and coming to life, giving birth, putting ideas together with other steering group members, and now seeing it brought to life. It's amazing to be part of something like that, where we say something and our ideas are taken into consideration. It makes a lot of sense to ask mums in order to help other mums. This Newham Nurture is the first time we've been consulted and heard, and action has been taken based on what we said." So what does Newham Nurture offer? So we offer antenatal education focused on English as a second language. We run weekly sessions across 3 locations within the borough in Newham, facilitated with lots of visuals, demonstrations and models, and also interpretation where needed. We run baby and me groups. These are run 3 times a week, inclusive of breastfeeding peer support. We run regular workshops such as first aid for early years, sexual health and family planning, baby feeding and introducing solids, and also workshops around caring for mum and baby sessions. We provide wraparound support, so peer support, providing advocacy and interpreting, accompanying women to access support and sessions themselves, and also key link work. So connecting women with suitable services and advocating for them. Some provisions including universal services or deemed universal are not actually available to women with insecure immigration. So we also complete referrals and assist in form filling, linking to immigration support, advocating with housing officers, and making sure women are really engaged with maternity services. We provide practical support, so nappies, we hold nearly new clothing fairs where we give donated clothing. We provide hospital bags with the essentials for mum and baby. We give donated buggies and toys, Moses baskets, etc. as needed. And then we provide counselling. So counselling is very limited. There's very limited opportunities for this target community to receive any sort of free counselling. So we provide one-to-one counselling and also introduction to counselling 6-week courses to dispel myths around counselling and to introduce women to what counselling is about and what is it for. We also run regular creative counselling groups called Art with Heart. So key themes that we see within the service are alike what we've heard within the voice recordings earlier. So some of the barriers that women we support are experiencing language barriers. Women are unfamiliar with the UK maternity services. We see poor nutrition, high-risk pregnancies, especially like gestational diabetes is very common. Food insecurity, people are, families living on food bank provisions with a lack of fresh foods. No cooking facilities available. For those also in migrant help contingency hotels, some families have only a kettle provided within their room, and they may have 2, 3, 4 children and no kitchen access, so they don't have a lot of control over what they can eat. So systemic lack, this is covering insecure housing, temporary accommodation, homelessness, poor living conditions and overcrowding. We have oversubscribed support services, so we find a constant challenge really finding legal support for our families. Financial insecurity, as an asylum seeker, depending on their provisions, that they may receive as little as £8 a week. And we have many at the moment that are not receiving any allowance due to being a backlog within the Home Office. Insecure childcare, so women who are isolated or with no family and friends, we find that they have no one to look after their children when they give birth, and they're resorting to unsafe childcare arrangements. So for us, our groups also is about assisting them with social isolation and bringing together other people and other groups of communities and people that speak the same language and building a support network. So a fear and suspicion of services. So NHS charging is a real problem. Having an insecure immigration status, being an undocumented migrant, or having no recourse to public funds, creates fear and a lack of trust in services and healthcare professionals. Domestic abuse. So whether fleeing from domestic abuse or for some women, this is their current experience. And poor emotional and mental health trauma. So women are holding significant psychological trauma from previous experiences and life events. So I'm now going to hand over to Pamela to share more about the lowering of barriers for our women to access our support. Pamela.
Thank you, Belinda. I'm Pamela, the volunteer coordinator with Neon Nurture. Can you hear me all right, please? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So the core of our service model is through access and inclusion, and through our co-production work, we have found key practices that lower the barriers for moms to access our support. Some of these are food. We provide a healthy lunch for our pregnant moms so they can attend our antenatal sessions and not to be concerned about food. Some of our women in shared housing have limited access to kitchen, maybe an hour slot each day, so there's concern if they miss the slots, they won't have food to eat. 2, creche. We provide creche within our antenatal sessions and our counseling, both one-to-one and group counseling. Moms are encouraged to use this as it allows them space to focus and for the baby to socialize with others. Most of our moms and babies have never had time apart, even for a short time. We provide travel money for public transports to our sessions offered within the service. This allows moms not to worry about finances when seeking our support. They know they can visit us anytime. Interpreting is provided both formal and informal, and some translated resources are available. We also use Google Translate for non-sensitive conversations or a steering group member, peer support, or staff member where possible. For counseling and with some link work, we use a local language shop. We provide interpreters. They also help with advocacy work and helping to fill forms for families, which women find very difficult. We also provide baby bundles, and this is supporting women with the practical help they need, as previously mentioned by Belinda. We have found that our co-production work has some unexpected outcomes. Steering group participation has had a significant positive impact on its members. Our evaluation has shown a strong sense of pride and ownership in the project, greater confidence, greater empathy, new skills being built, a profound and transformational experience for some members, a step towards new work or training for many members, new meaning and direction in life, exposure to new experiences. They've been stretched and supported beyond their comfort zone. 4 members of the steering group went on to receive accredited training as volunteer peer supporters with NCT within the project, and 1 has a role within the staff team. Some of our impacts between January 2021 to November 2022 are as follows. So far, we have supported 330 families. We have trained 27 peer supporters, 8 of which are trained specifically for breastfeeding peer support. We have had 1,320 casework sessions. We have had 44 different languages represented. Most commonly spoken are Albanian, Gujarati, Hindi, Arabic, Bengali, Kurdish, and Yoruba. We have 29 languages available to support within our new and nurture team, and this includes staff, steering group, and peer support volunteers. The pie chart shows the ethnic diversity of mothers supported within the service. The 5 highest are in order are 1, Black African, 2, it's white background, other white background such as Albania, Romanian, Ukrainian, and the 3rd it's India, and the other is other Asian backgrounds such as Afghanistan, Iran, Georgia, Russia, Vietnam, Armenia. Then the 5th part of the pie chart is represented by Bangladeshi. A couple of quotes. One of our advisory group members said, New Nurture looks at every single barrier and tries to reduce it as much as possible. A mother attending baby and me session said, it is good for me and my baby to come here. It's so welcoming. When I come here and they smile, all my sadness goes away. I have found my sisters here. So far, we work collaboratively with local statutory services and other VCS organizations. Our manager, Belinda, is the VCS representative for the 0 to 5 board in the borough. We keenly share our learning to help women's voices and experiences to be heard, including through national research opportunities and local working groups. As part of the project external evaluation, few referrers were interviewed, and they said, Newham Nurture is such a valuable partnership within the borough, and I think that we as a system have come a long way and have strengthened ties and partnership working across voluntary sector, council, NHS, because of their unrelenting efforts to be engaged and not to work in isolation. So the last but not the least, it's a lovely photo of our proud team receiving an award of the City of Sanctuary Maternity Services in recognition for our contribution to being a welcoming place of safety and support for those seeking sanctuary. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Belinda and Pamela, and definitely a well-deserved award. There are some comments in the chat, which I'll just run through quickly, but if anyone has any further questions, please do post them in the chat or raise your hand if you'd like to come off mute. Pamela very kindly answered a couple of questions, but just for the purpose of people watching back on the recording, I'll just read them out. So let me just find them. Just to say, I know some people were struggling with the audio recording. So Belinda and Pamela, will that be included in the slides we can send out afterwards?
I'm really sorry, it won't be at the moment, just due to GDPR. We're just finalising everything at the moment, so not at the moment, sorry.
No problem, of course, need to kind of follow what the women have agreed to. So if at some point it becomes available, we'll definitely send it round to everyone as well. Great. I mean, lots of comments about how powerful the audio recording was. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. So there was a question around what training do your antenatal educators receive to deliver the classes / workshops in other languages? And Pamela responded that the educators are trained NCT practitioners. And then there's a follow-up around if they're bilingual or if they deliver the classes in English and a volunteer translate. And that was that answered in the chat? I don't know if Belinda and Pamela, if you wanted to add to that. Great.
So the first obviously the first part Pamela's already responded. The classes are in English, but because we speak to everybody beforehand, we provide either a steering group member or a staff member to sit with them that speak the same language, so we have an interpreter available as needed.
Amazing, thank you. Mo has asked, Heart with Hearts, can you please share more about this? Thanks.
Art with Heart. I wish our counsellor was here right now, but it's to introduce some of the women to counselling and dispel some of those myths around counselling. So we've found that the introduction to counselling is important, and we have many of the groups are within different language. We've just finished an Albanian group that's in Albanian, but some of the women are still quite unaware of what counselling is, but they really want more discussion and focused work and support. So it's sort of like a group where they all get together and do lots of different art. So lots of different activities, things like that. There's two of our counsellors are there. It's very trauma informed, and it's just having side-by-side discussions with the women.
Thank you. Kim says, well done on the award, amazing work. Is there an age limitation in terms of the children and families you can engage with? What about families with slightly older kids? Is there another charity like you for that age group? I worry about the gap. and Pamela's answered it in the chat 0 to 2, but I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Oh gosh, yes, there is a gap, but you know, local depends who you talk to, because children's centres are available for women to you know, to access with children that are older than 2. We do work very, very closely with them. It's just our target community doesn't tend to access the children's centres as much. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Belinda, for sharing that. Cassandra has asked, our service, Hampshire Healthy Families, is always looking to lower barriers to increase participation. What have you found to be the most successful in achieving this?
So definitely the 5 points that we discussed were really, really key points to our co-production work. So those 5 things are around, you know, food, around creche, around travel money, because I mean, depending on your target market, we have many women that don't have any allowance at all, and also, you know, up to £8 a week. So we're expecting them to access things like children's services, to maternity services and things like that, but they don't have money for the bus. So I think travel money is an absolute key to the service accessibility. Also, of course, interpreting practical support, which is what we mentioned.
Thank you, Belinda. And there's another question, if you have any resources to share from your work that other organisations can utilise in their areas.
So NCT has a lot of evidence-based information on the website. As far as New and Nurture, we are slowly putting things together. We do have resources that we have. We've not really discussed about sharing it more widely, but we will do. We will have that. So we have a website, newandnurture.org.uk, so you can keep on that, and maybe we can put some of those resources up.
Amazing. Yeah, if those become available, I'd be happy to share them with those who have attended this webinar. Any other questions for Belinda and Pamela? Just see if anyone's typing anything. If anyone wants to raise their hand and come off mute. Toyin?
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for such a powerful presentation. I'm sort of scared to ask this question because I appreciate that you are already doing lots and lots and lots, but I'm wondering if the Home Office is what should I say, planning on trying to improve things in any way, shape or form at all. Yeah, I just wondered if there was anything on that side. Like I said, a bit worried about asking that question for, I think, many obvious reasons, but
wow, I think that's a wider question to share, really, and I'm wondering if Jill would like to. No, Jill, do you have anything that you can add to that? I mean, obviously, you know, part of it is about sharing, working collaboratively and sharing, you know, the issues that are going on and the lived experience. So a lot of it is that. I mean, locally, we have particular working groups that we have started, or task and finish groups, to address some of these, and meetings are going on to feed back into the Home Office. So that's what we are doing locally. I mean, I don't know, Jill, if you wanted to add to that. I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Not at all. I wish I had something to add to that.
Yeah.
I don't really have any information on the histories of the Home Office, unfortunately. I feel like we just keep up with whoever shows up, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'd like to say things are getting better, but to be honest, we've now got women that are, or families that are experiencing that they don't have any allowance at all. So because they're in backlog. So what can I say?
yeah, no, thank you so much, and you are doing obviously amazing work, and like you said, it's just good to raise that awareness for all of us so we can, in whatever shape or capacity, just kind of keep passing that on. And yeah, but thank you.
Absolutely, that's such a really important point. I mean, there are lots of different routes that different organisations will take, whether it's kind of service improvement in their own areas, or if they are having meetings with different government departments, kind of taking what we learn in meetings like this there and doing what we can is really important. So thank you for asking that question. It's a really important point. Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you so much, Belinda, for answering those questions, and Pamela for answering the questions in the chat. And thanks again for your presentation and for very kindly sharing that audio recording of the very powerful stories that women shared. I am now going to hand over to Sally from Leicester Mamas. I am also going to be sharing her slides. So just bear with me one moment while I get that set up.
Thanks, Celeste. Hi everyone, and I think the first two presentations have just been absolutely amazing, and obviously work that we're very close to our heart as well. And what we've been doing with Starting Well Leicester links with so much of that, but it's broader as well. We're a partnership for Starting Well Leicester, and CFF are the lead organisation. Mamas have been doing a lot of the delivery of the work, and I'm going to be talking about how we've been supporting feeding babies through that work. And mamas, that's our core work, has always been breastfeeding support. Next slide, thanks. What do mamas do? We support all the way through the first 1,001 days from pregnancy to 2 for any parent and new mum and baby in Leicester and also beyond, but that's our core area is Leicester. We're part of Leicester NHS Healthy Together Healthy Child programme, subcontracted by them. We're a non-independent community interest company, and our breastfeeding support is through one-to-one support and through groups, but we support with anything around feeding all the way through, and we're a women-led mother-to-mother evidence-based specialist support. I'm a lactation consultant, an IBCLC, and have been for the last 15 years. Thanks. Next one. Leicester is a quite unique city, like they all are really, I'm sure. It's the first city in the UK that's majority Black and minority ethnic, majority Asian of those communities, and that means that we have many communities that value breastfeeding, and that's passed down through the generations, and that means that breastfeeding isn't the contentious issue it may be elsewhere, and we have higher than UK average breastfeeding rates. Next slide, thanks. We're also a city that has a lot of deprivation, and that means a lot of health inequalities and higher infant mortality, around 30% of children living in poverty. Next slide. Feeding babies, helping parents achieve their goals, and that's what we're about, helping parents to achieve their goals for feeding their baby. Because feeding is integrally and it's intimately connected with the child's outcomes in every sense, of course, but it's also integrally and intimately connected with how the mother feels about her relationship with the child. However she's feeding, it links with bonding, with sleep, with her maternal mental health. It links with future healthy eating, infant mental health, and very much more as well. So supporting with feeding, that's breastfeeding, hopefully, but those parents who aren't breastfeeding, supporting them to feed their baby as in the best way they can. And that goes all the way through from pregnancy to 2 years, and also means that many parents stay with us as they have subsequent babies. Many parents are still breastfeeding when they have their next pregnancy. It also very much means listening and responding to women as individuals, and very many of those, you know, the things that we've been hearing from Jill and from Yolanda and from Belinda as well, and Pamela as well, it really at the core of how we work too, and working alongside the partners that we have in health and children's services and more as well. Next slide. We have core values and assumptions, and that is that breastfeeding has a vital role to play in addressing and reducing health inequalities. And because we have many mothers who do want to breastfeed, and therefore we know that we want to support them to do that, and we know that that will help with a lot of stuff around deprivation and health inequalities as well. But we only have data, of course, up to 6 weeks, and that's just the start of established breastfeeding. And we need to really be able to track what happens after this if we're to really improve outcomes in health inequalities. We know in Leicester we have many, many mothers who are breastfeeding their babies according to the World Health Organization recommendations of exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months, followed by breastfeeding alongside solid foods for 2 years and beyond. But we have no idea of the numbers. We have no idea how that might be actually impacting on what's happening in their lives and what's happening with their child. And we would really love to see better data collection around that. We know all parents want the best for their babies, and that doesn't matter what their background is, their ethnicity, their education, or their age. However, we also know, and this is really borne out all the time, the poorest women facing the most adversity are in every case the least likely to establish breastfeeding for a whole host of reasons. And I'm sure that Jill and Belinda as well will recognise this. And without your programmes, I'm sure you would see that we need these programs to help those parents to succeed in their wish to breastfeed their babies. One of the biggest barriers being appointments, the number of appointments that parents need to make, the number of travel, the amount of travelling they have to get going from place to place. And of course, when you are in adverse situations, we know that babies are often born earlier, and if you don't have a doula with you, it's going to have a really big impact on you too. And one of our things that we really worked with in Mamas is trying to really seek creative, adaptive, responsive ways to support all the women in the city to achieve their goals for feeding their baby for as long as they want to. Next slide, thanks. We love the idea of the warm chain of support, which comes from the World Alliance for Breastfeeding Action, which shows that you want that support from pregnancy all the way along, and that's what can really help with breastfeeding. And we have this year managed to get peer supporters into the hospital and into the neonatal services as well, which really brings together those areas we've always worked with the antenatal and postnatal, which is great. Next. This puts beautifully what really breastfeeding is about as well, and that's from one of the former executive directors of UNICEF, that breastfeeding is a natural safety net against the worst effects of poverty, and exclusive breastfeeding goes a long way towards cancelling out the health difference between being born into poverty or being born into affluence, almost as if breastfeeding takes the infant out of poverty for those first few vital months, in order to give the child a fairer start in life and compensate for the injustices of the world into which it was born. Next slide. However, this can mask a lot of things that we also know when we've got to be careful not to sort of associate certain wishes around feeding with certain groups. And there's, we know, for example, that routine and manual sector amongst white British workers from 2005 to 2010 had some of the biggest increases in breastfeeding initiation rates. Of course, we have very little really from since then because we don't have an infant feeding survey anymore. We also know that when women arrive in the UK and they come from a culture where breastfeeding is considered the norm, being exposed to the societal norms in the UK and the expectations really, and the marketing of formula, that she's less likely to be breastfeeding at 4 months than she probably would be if she had lived wherever she had been living before, even with the support she might get. Next slide. Leicester, these are some of our statistics of the mothers that we reach. We reach the very high number of Asian mothers. That's because of word of mouth. It's because we came from a very grassroots background supporting mothers who came to us, predominantly Muslim mothers, but the whole of the demographics of Leicester. Thanks. Next slide. And the way that we work in Mamas is to really support and integrate breastfeeding throughout all the things we do. And we provide lots and lots of different activities and sessions online and in person. it's nice to hear that in Newham you have Baby and Me, because that's our core support as well. Baby and Me are our groups too, but lots of different activities from all the way through. We have breast pump loan schemes, we do one-to-one help, we have all the other things that we've talked about, also training to become breastfeeding peer supporters, and mamas ambassadors that we introduced during lockdown for mothers to not have to commit to becoming a volunteer, but to get extra knowledge and information so they can pass that on within their community, increasing community knowledge and breaking down some of the myths around breastfeeding. Next slide. A big focus that we've been able to really increase with Starting Well funding has been supporting the infant and maternal mental health strands around baby massage, baby yoga, different things around based on sort of more the Solihull approach, and some different programs for supporting maternal mental health. And one outcome we have found is that we've been able to we've been successful in getting a 3-year project through Leicester City Council that is first 1,001 days, supporting parents with vulnerabilities around their emotional and physical health, and breaking down barriers to social inclusion, helping with bonding, helping with confidence building, and that started quite recently. And really, really pleased that we've been able to do that, which will continue a lot of our Starting Well work at the end of this financial year. Thank you. Next. During COVID, of course, we found that it was even harder for vulnerable families to access different services. And we could see then it really highlighted the barriers that were out there that families might be facing. A lot of the different things that have been already highlighted in the previous 2 presentations as well. Next slide. And so we decided that part of Starting Well, we would set up a separate project, a baby project. It's very easy to forget now, but Leicester was in lockdown for longer than anywhere else in the country, and it really did have an impact. You know, you didn't really know any families in Leicester where they hadn't had someone within their family who didn't die of COVID quite early on. Alongside that, and of course, many of the families that we work with there, they have husbands, and they themselves will be working in key industries or key sectors: taxi drivers, care workers, nurses, pharmacists. You know, they're all having to go into work and really feeling very, very vulnerable. And at the same time, another thing that came out of that was the textile industry in Leicester, and the fact that many families working within that, and that's a lot of women who are being exploited, not getting access to antenatal support, not being allowed to really go to clinic, and really having an impact there too. So that's what we brought around, was this baby project to support with that. And again, very much in line with the sort of support that has been offered in Newham, and for Jill's project as well. Next, please. So very similar things, you know, providing that one-to-one antenatal and postnatal support with breastfeeding, but with lots more to really doing all we can to wrap around that, helping with form filling, access to the food bank in the community centre where we held the project, helping people to feel they could engage with activities, emergency supplies as well, so supplying formula milk where it was needed in line with the WHO code as well, which is something that we have worked on in a long time in Leicester too, and referring on to other organisations that could provide help as well. Thanks. Next slide. So a lot of families we've supported there, and has been really, really rewarding to see that, and how the 2 support workers who were 2 of our peer supporters, Sarah and Nadia, who speak community languages as well, they've absolutely loved being part of it, and have really always gone the extra mile to make sure that those families get all the support they need to. So yeah, baby projects helped in so many things. Whenever we worry about something or not sure what the letters say, we phone mamas. Even when we had COVID, Nadia brought us food and paracetamol. And it's like my family's come to see me and my baby today. I have no one here, but I said to my mum on the phone, it's like God has sent me a big sister. And I noticed in one of the other presentations, someone talking about it feeling like you've got a sister there when you have someone there to help. Next slide. One thing we've really noticed as well that's we've not seen before in mamas are the number of families with young children and babies now being housed in hotel accommodation. And this is not asylum seekers. These are just mothers and parents who have not got any housing. And, you know, if you, just like someone was saying, you know, you've just got a kettle in that room. You've got all the stuff for your baby and a kettle. You have to buy all your food. You know, it's a horrendous situation. And we want to make sure that where parents are breastfeeding still, that they can continue to breastfeed. And very often, the first thing that mothers worry about is my milk's not enough. You know, I need to start giving formula because I'm stressed. So being able to reassure them and go and help and support them and keep them breastfeeding is crucial, I think. And what all this has led to is another new project, which has been inspired by some new guidance from UNICEF Baby Friendly to local authorities around supporting families with infants under 12 months in food insecurity that we have been inputting into. Thanks, next slide. And I wanted to really find out more to begin with about what the situation was for the parents in Leicester who are formula feeding their babies, how that cost is impacting on them. Is it a big impact? Are they all going to food banks? How is that really impacting on their lives, I suppose, if they aren't breastfeeding? And so held a short anonymous survey just for a few weeks online amongst the WhatsApp groups that we have in Mamas and other, you know, the Health for Under Fives website, Children's Centre Facebook, and the CFF Teens Parents programme, and we had 92 responses. And so aimed at those mothers who are solely or predominantly formula feeding. Next slide, thanks. And the main reasons that people told us they were using formula milk, you know, that only 10 of those 92, it was a personal choice during pregnancy. For all the others, it was that they had intended or they wanted to breastfeed but hit challenges, didn't get support, were given formula in hospital, being told they've got to give formula to get their baby's weight up. And, you know, the way that might impact on that mother is really really big part of how she feels about her mental health, and also now her financial, you know, her practical day-to-day life as well, having to actually buy the formula as well. So no help in regards to breastfeeding in the hospital, given a pump and left to it after 5 days being in hospital, asking for help and not getting anything in return. And then also would have loved to breastfeed, but due to sickness, baby gained formula and didn't latch on. And the stories we hear time and time again affected me mentally, alongside the cost of formula stress, thinking as he starts drinking more, struggling to afford it, as it's so expensive too. Next slide. Asking how much they spend on formula a week. So most, about half, spending £10 to £15, but some spending a lot more than that. And if you're using ready to use milk, you're going to be spending a huge amount. Next slide. Asking if people received Healthy Start, and 10 did out of that 92. And it's very difficult, you know. Next slide. Thanks. You know, it's really not easy to get Healthy Start. Universal credit on its own doesn't entitle you to it. Many benefits you don't get entitlement to it. You have to be, and of course, if you're at the other end, then you may not be getting public funds either. So that's a big part of that too. Next slide. And about 3/4 of the mothers who responded to the survey said that the cost of formula milk was a worry or concern for them. Next slide. So we asked what they were going to be doing, what they were doing to manage that. So they were cutting down on other items, buying less expensive things, asking friends or family to help. Only 2 had been to a food bank, and only 2 had also spoken to a health visitor or other professional too. So a limited number of things that people are able to do. Thanks. Next slide. And the comments came back were quite heartrending as well. The one in the middle, for example, sometimes when we've run out, both me and my partner have gone 2 to 3 days without a proper meal, just so we could get milk in for our daughter. And, you know, people's feelings about the costs and about how, you know, the top one, for example, a mother who wanted to breastfeed and their baby didn't get tongue tie identified or treated in time, and therefore wasn't able to breastfeed, and the whole, you know, feeling of being overwhelmed, the baby being overwhelmed, and the family as well, and really sort of feeling this system is just not helping anybody. And the last one too, important to help mothers who already feel vulnerable after delivery, and the rising cost and pressure of feeding their baby should be the last thing to worry about. It's every child's right to good nutrition. Thanks. Next. And so as an outcome of that UNICEF baby friendly guidance and our other projects have been doing, we spoke to Public Health in Leicester, and they were really receptive. We work very closely with them. We have a really good relationship with Public Health and with the Children's Services as well. And the Integrated Care Board offered some further funding to expand Baby Project, and we are able now to actually download, get some vouchers that can be downloaded on people's phones to purchase infant formula. And they would need to then access our project, make sure they get the feeding support that they need, ensure that they can feed their baby safely, and if they are breastfeeding, to continue, and help with all that wraparound, as we've said. But that if their baby is formula feeding, they do have access to funds to be able to purchase it. And we've been linking with the food plan in Leicester to cascade that information to the food banks and the community pantries, and hoping to offer some workshops to explain that to anyone who wants to find out more in Leicester. Thanks. Thanks. Next slide. And that's built in with safeguards and monitoring, that we will make sure that the baby's health visitor knows what's going on and is aware that that family is accessing the scheme. We realise that those mothers in the hotels, for example, often the health visitor didn't realise, even when there was a young baby involved, that they'd been housed in a hotel. And that there is a monthly catch-up meeting between our staff and the Commissioner for Children's Services, so we can track what the take-up is. Thanks. Next slide. So getting to the end of Starting Well now, and it's really been such a privilege to be able to deliver so many of the things we've always wanted to in Mamas, and also to work with CFF. You know, having that partnership has been a springboard for so much that we've been doing in Mamas and in Leicester, and that can continue as well. It's had an impact on so many ways that of the core work that we do with feeding. So seeing that referrals themselves for feeding support going up or to over 1,000 a year on our helplines, and that's coming from our groups and helping people then to join the groups. Of course, the external evaluation aspect of the Starting Well has been really, we've already had some interim results, and they're really rewarding as well. The better mental health and well-being, reducing social isolation, and increasing duration and exclusivity of breastfeeding as well. And it's really raised our profile across the trust about the first 1,001 days. I don't feel that the first 1,001 days was really, you know, had really sort of percolated into people's psyches in services in Leicester. But that's really changed, and we've been consulted all the way through with this too. We've been offered more funding from the Integrated Care Board to increase breastfeeding rates in key areas and to work with teen parents as well. And a lot of engagement around key public health messaging around a lot of different things, including now the cost of living. And then the preparatory work for Start for Life. And then, as I mentioned earlier, our 3-year funding supporting parents with vulnerabilities in the first 1,001 days. So that's the end of my project. I think there might be one more slide. Oh, some feedback from mothers as well. Yes, and that's always really lovely when you get the feedback all the time, don't you? And it really makes people feel part of a family, I think, when you have that links together with other mothers. Thanks. And I think there were just some photos on the last slide. So yes, some of our peer supporters, we're a community interest, and so that's Rahat with her little girl on the left hand side at the bottom, one of our directors, and lots and lots of our different activities there, and advocating with our local MP as well. So thanks to everyone.
Thank you so much, Sally, for your presentation. Really interesting work and insights going on in Leicester, and it's always nice to see those lovely quotes and pictures with the people you're working with. If anyone has any questions for Sally, please do post them in the chat or raise your hand if you'd like to come off mute. There is a question from Cassandra. What was the referral criteria for the baby project, Sally?
We don't really have any criteria. I mean, anyone who they can self-refer or they can be referred. We don't have anything that we do any sort of means testing or anything. If we can see that someone needs support, we'll support them.
Amazing, thank you. Any other questions for Sally? I mean, lots of nice comments in the chat about the great work that you're doing. If anyone wants to type in the chat or raise their hand. Holly?
I wasn't sure if my hand had raised or not. Sorry about that. I was just wondering about sort of the engagement with dads. I know from a personal experience, I had twin boys during COVID in 2021. And my breastfeeding journey, there were so many other factors which I won't go into, but certainly for the dad, he offered a lot of skin to skin and he did a lot of that. So I'm just wondering, obviously the project is called Mamas, and obviously there's a real focus on that, and whilst I understand that, what kind of engagement do you get with dads at all?
Well, when we support someone one-to-one, then we will speak to the fathers as much as, when they're there, we'll always engage with them and speak to them. They are very often very engaged. Often it's fathers who might be phoning on behalf of their partner. They're invited to the antenatal sessions, which are online at the moment. But yeah, there's always more that you can do, isn't there? And that will be part of the Blossom and Bloom programme as well. So we're hoping, we've done focus groups before to try to see where we can get engagement from fathers. It's not always clear cut, is it? You have to really, I think sometimes they're not sure exactly what they want and how they would most like to engage.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. And I guess for my partner, it was even sometimes a bit of like, I'll do this to enable you to do that. So that wasn't that conflict between, oh, I'm really trying to spend some time breastfeeding, but I'm mindful of, all of the other, I need to put the tea on, I need to clean the house, all of them other factors that might then lead to the change of like, actually, this is really difficult. Or he was almost the, I'll do everything else, you focus on that. And I guess that's where he came about in that. But he obviously was already there in that thinking, and that's why I'm asking about sort of what we do to get people to think about that side of things. Whilst they might not be to directly help with breastfeeding, it's the other things that they can influence.
And I think the other thing that we know from the families we support, it's the further family engagement too. You know, a very, very big number of the mothers who engage with us live in extended family still, and that can be a great support, but it can be an absolute real difficulty as well.
Agree. Yeah.
And so helping them to manage that as well is a core part. It really, really is huge. And I'd love to do some research at some time, or a project around the father's role, and how he feels about being still the son within that family of the parents-in-law, and also the wife and the father himself, because I see the conflict that they face a lot of the time, and I hear it from what the mothers say as well.
Yeah, I think that'd be really interesting. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carly and Sally. Any other questions for Sally? Again, if anyone wants to post them in the chat or raise their hand and come off mute. No. I mean, again, lots more. Thanks for your presentation, Sally, in the chat as well. Okay, well, thank you again, Sally, for taking people's questions and for your presentation. Really appreciate it. I think we might be closing early, so I'll just say that the recording and slides will be sent after the event. We'll also make sure you receive the recordings from the previous events in case you missed them, as well as a couple of resources we've developed to support Starting Well projects to share learning and make connections across the system. So there'll be a map of all the projects. Again, if you look at that information about the projects and there's a project working in your area, or even if they're not working in your area but they're doing something you're interested in, do contact me. I'll put my email in the chat and I can try and arrange to make that connection. Thank you so much again to Jill, Yolanda, Pamela, Belinda and Sally for your presentations, as well as all the stories from women and families you very kindly shared with us. I will post a link to a short evaluation form in the chat. We've actually just had one more question come in that I will ask while I post the link in the chat if any of the speakers want to take it. What are the top 3 challenges you've had in your projects and how did you overcome them?
I'm happy to go first if you like.
Thanks, Sally.
For me, often it's getting referrals and the buy-in sometimes from statutory services. You know, they're really keen, they're always really enthusiastic, and yet sometimes we find that the same health visitors will be referring all the time, and they're sort of like black holes, if you like, in the city where it's harder to engage. And then the other thing is that, of course, during COVID, a lot of the way services that were delivered was totally really sort of changed, and it's only just really still coming back. You know, health visitors have got such a massive workload, so the staffing levels for maternity and health visiting, I think, is a big challenge. We would imagine that we always hope that when things are difficult that you get more referrals and share the load more, but often I know that when people are really, really busy, they seem to find it's even harder to remember to make those referrals. And I don't know if Jill and Belinda find the same too.
That's a really interesting one. I think that there have been moments where we've wondered if we're missing people, that they weren't being referred, and that makes us quite nervous. And so, yes, there have been moments where we've really upped our effort to connect to other services and make sure that they are referring women who could use support. I'm not sure that's our main challenge, though. It's an ongoing concern, and it's always sort of in the back of our minds. The main challenges that I was thinking of, and Yolanda, I'd be interested to hear what you say, have to do with making sure we're providing interpretation for everybody and being able to afford that. And I think just working with the amount of trauma that people have experienced. And again, we are not directly addressing their trauma, but we're certainly signposting and hearing their stories and then working with them. And of course, trauma affects everything. Everybody, you know, if you've had trauma, it affects everything you're doing. So it's just being able to support through that. there was something else in my mind that's gone. Yolanda, is there anything you would add to that in terms of main challenges?
I agree with what you said. With one other challenge which we have, and I think Jill will stay with me this one, is when mothers have given birth and they have to register their babies. We have a big issue with registration of face, which they need someone to speak English, which we know not all the mothers speak English. And it's quite difficult when mothers have so much on their head, give an appointment to register the baby, and after they are turned back because they don't have someone to speak English.
It's sort of like supporting them through what they face from services, which are not always set up to, well, are not usually set up to deal with such a huge variety of women from different places. Yeah.
Thank you so much for answering that question. Yeah, definitely a good question. Again, we've posted my email in the chat and the link to the evaluation form. Would really appreciate if you could fill that in for us. Thank you so much for your time. I can see Mo's posted another question, so I'll email that to the speakers, and if they have time to respond, we'll send that background out to everyone. But yeah, thank you so much to all our speakers again, and thank you so much to all of you for attending. We really appreciate you taking the time out to listen to the presentations. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.